Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's been another busy week in fish keeping, with more travel and even more changes in our fish room. This week, both Will and I had to travel to Chicago for work, and we're lucky enough in the little bit of time that we had to catch up with Troy from Siglet Brothers. We got to tour his aquariums, talk fish. We had a great time, and we look forward to seeing him and his brothers in the future. If you missed last week's video, Will and I started a few projects in both of our fish rooms, where due to the growth and behaviors of some of our fish, we started some pretty big projects, moving fish, providing them with the space and scapes that they deserve. We combined both of our 125-gallon Mbuna tanks into his 150, re-scaped his 150-gallon peacock and hat tank, and moved all the Frontosa and Lake Tanganyikan fish into the 125-gallon that used to house the Mbuna. In doing so, we freed up plenty of space at my house, opening up another 125 gallons for my black nasty Nino and his old 75 for my Red Tiger Mota pair. In today's video, we wanted to share with you the entire process of how, where, and why we decided to move these fish and just how it all ended up. We hope you guys enjoy. So this is the 125-gallon tank that we freed up for Nino. If you're new to the channel, Nino is my Nandopsis Haitiensis, better known as the black nasty cichlid. I knew very early after starting this hobby that having a wet pet was something I wanted to try. I loved the behavior of my Oscar that I had in the community 125-gallon when I first started. I enjoyed how he'd come up to the glass or jump for food when it was time to feed, like a true water puppy. I wanted something bigger and more unique. So I researched all different kinds of large cichlids, but when I came across a video of the black nasty, I knew that was exactly what I wanted. My wife and I enjoy this hobby together. Oftentimes, we'll Google local fish stores that are within a couple hours drive and use that time in the car, at the fish store, and over dinner to talk and deepen our bond. And it was on one of those dates that we drove to one of our favorite local fish stores, London Town Tropicals in Maryland, where I found the fish that I'd been looking for. I bought him at about an inch, but I knew just how large he was capable of growing. So I promised myself when I bought him that as long as he'd continue to grow, I'd ensure he'd have the tank size to accommodate him. If you want to see his growth and evolution over his first year, check out the link in the upper right hand corner. Last month, Will and I were doing what we do daily and talking about our fish. I explained to him that Nino was getting huge, so he and I brainstormed and agreed that we'd combine his Mbuna with my Mbuna tank, which would open up both my 75 and 125-gallon aquariums. We knew the 125 would go to Nino. That's when I shared with Will that the two female Red Tiger Motas that I had in my 60-gallon had just recently laid and eaten their eggs. Will and I are both new enough in the hobby to only have had a few different types of fish breed, but it's something that we're both interested in. So we thought, why not move G Money, the Red Tiger Mota that had already moved from my house to Will's and now back to my house. The plan was to put all three Red Tiger Motas together in Nina's old 75-gallon, but when I brought him back home, we hadn't yet started the move. So I put him into the 60-gallon with both females. And it wasn't one full day before one of my females had been completely beaten. So I removed her and put her into quarantine. That's when I started the move. In the old 125-gallon Mbuna tank, I had a pretty decent sized snail population. It didn't bother me at all in that setup because I had a very light colored substrate. But knowing that I was going with a black substrate and minimal decor, I wanted to rid the tank of snails. So I removed all the substrate and thoroughly cleaned both the Fluval FX4 and 407 that filter the aquarium. Then I filled the tank and dosed it with copper to eliminate the possibility of any remaining snails. I wasn't in any rush to move the fish, so I allowed the copper to cycle through the filters and the aquarium for about a week. Then I drained and filled the aquarium twice in order to flush the filters of any remaining copper. Now having the confidence that the 125 was ready to go, I started to drain Nino's aquarium and placed him into this 40-gallon tuff being aerated with an air stone and an air pump. When the 75-gallon aquarium was completely drained, I removed the substrate with a dustpan, placing it into a 5-gallon bucket, taking the substrate straight to the drained 125. When I'd removed a majority of the substrate, I used a shop vac to get as much of the black substrate out as possible. Then I placed this light colored substrate directly into the aquarium. I know, I didn't rinse the sand, but I was confident the tank would settle relatively quickly. Then I decided to take all of the decor out of the 60-gallon to scape the new setup. With the intent to breed the Red Tiger Motas, I knew they required flat surfaces to lay their eggs on. So I made sure to put both a large flat rock and a piece of driftwood with smooth surfaces in the aquarium. Then I added a few other rocks and fake plants to add a little color. Then I filled the tank using a bowl anchored with a rock to limit disturbing the substrate as much as possible. With the scape complete and the tank full, it was time to move the fish. And I loved how this tank turned out. Now I just pray that we get some fry. That's when Will showed up and immediately started helping with the move. As soon as I'd moved the RTMs to their new home, Will drained what water was left in their 60. Then he removed the black substrate, putting it right into the 125. By combining the substrate from Nino's 75-gallon and the RTM 60, we had plenty to support the new setup. And that between the biomedia from the Fluval 207s on the 60-gallon and the substrate, there'd be enough beneficial bacteria to support Nino in his new 125-gallon home. When Will and I broke his Lake Tanganyika setup down, he gave me the large piece of driftwood that he had in that tank. But it was too large to fit in my 125, so I decided to cut it into 3 pieces. After it had been cut, we noticed that for the larger 2 pieces, there was space on the back of each that you could wedge a pretty decent sized rock into and use as an anchor. This guaranteed that we wouldn't have to worry about the driftwood floating or having to place rocks on the driftwood to hold them down. Black nasties are also notorious for moving decor and digging, and Nino lived up to that reputation. So anchoring the driftwood should limit his ability to move anything as well. Once we were good with the scape, it was time to move Nino. He's taken to his new home nicely, and I'm hoping that by ensuring that he's got sufficient room, I can continue to watch him grow. Well, that wraps up today's video. We hope you guys enjoyed. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and until next time, be safe.